Hey, everybody, this is Andy Hall. You are watching the Best Advice Ever. It's a show where awesome people come on and talk about the best advice they ever got. Today, we have Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He is a heart specialist from York, England. He has a great YouTube channel, York Cardiology, well over 120,000 subscribers with millions of views. Yes, I said millions of views. How are you doing today, Dr. Gupta?
I'm very well, thank you, Andy. Yeah, very well. It's quite cold where I am today, so it's nice to be at home and in a warm place. And as you can see, I'm quite wrapped up because it's so cold. But yeah, no, it's great to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
It's great having you on. I am in New England, and it just happens to be cold and rainy here too.
That's why they share the same name. Right.
Exactly. So tell me about the best advice you ever got.
Okay, so the best advice I ever got was it all came about. I'll tell you how it all came about, and then so I had a friend, a very close friend. My friend, out of the blue, had a heart attack, and when he had the heart attack, a lot of my common friends came and they said to me, look, this has happened out of the blue. You're a doctor. What can you do to try and test me out so that the same thing doesn't happen to me? And then can you please also advise me on what I can do to try and look after myself to think bad like this? And I said, yeah, sure, I can test you out and hopefully it won't happen to you. And if we find something, then we can fix it and that'll be that. They all came and had a bunch of tests. We discovered that they all had some heart disease, but nothing that was so bad that it needed fixing. And therefore, we were sort of stuck because they had something, but nothing that had any evidence for fixing it, and at the same time they still had something which still exposed them to some degree of risk in the future, yet you couldn't do much about it. The more I tried to look into the research and the more I tried to look, it became very apparent to me that really there was very little you could do for these people. There was very little. The more I looked, the more I realized that medicine is very good at fixing things once things are broken. Medicine is not very good at stopping things from getting broken in the first place. So, and virtually everything that we do is based on population studies. It became very apparent that but people are not, the person in front of me doesn't want to be a population. The person in front of me is an individual. He wants to know about what his risk is. He doesn't want to know what the risk is of a population of people like him. And so the more I looked upon it, I went and asked my more senior colleague, and I said, look, what works? What works here? What is the secret? We've been doing this. What is the secret? And he turned around and he said to me that, he's been doing medicine for 50 years. And I said, how do I prevent bad things from happening to this person? And he said, you can't. So what is the advice? What is the best advice? He said, well, you go back to them and you tell them to live each day as if it were their last. And as long as they did that, one day they'll be proven right. And I think that is the best advice because that is the reality. The reality is that we can die in so many different ways. Yet we focus on, I don't want to have a heart attack. I don't want to have cancer. I don't want to have this. Death is round the corner for any of us at any time, anywhere. So what we should do really is not worry about when we're going to die, but try and maximize our quality of lives now. And so my advice to my patients has changed when someone comes to me and says, look, I've only got I've got 2 8-year-old children and I want to be there for them when they're 20. And I say, well, be there for them now. That's more important. So that's the best advice I was ever given.
I was dating a nurse years ago, and she told me something along the lines of people die all the time. A lot of the times you don't really know why. It just
No,
happens.
absolutely. Completely true. I think something bad can happen to anyone, anywhere. And the reality is the world goes on.
Yeah, yeah. And it took me a while to wrap my mind around that bit of information. But years afterwards, I am now pretty much at peace with that.
Yeah.
And I think when people hear that there's very little medicine can do about preventing things from going wrong, there's an initial panic. But given time and reflection, they come out at the other end happier.
Yes.
And probably healthier, to tell you the truth, because they're not anxious.
Absolutely. I think the other thing is that, when bad things happen, you can take it in two different ways. You can let that fear that generates enslave you, and you can get overtly anxious and start worrying about this and worrying about that, etc. Or you can use your perspective to allow it to liberate you. And
Right.
my idea is really to tell people that actually, what are you scared of? Whatever we're scared of is going to happen anyway. We have no control over that. The fact that we fear something's going to happen is not going to stop it from happening. It's just going to stop us living in the interim, right? So to my mind, that is the biggest kind of problem. We think to our heads of too much, either in the past or in the future. And that generates a whole degree of other things which don't need to be bothering us.
I imagine, as a doctor, that you've seen a lot of people who have real difficulty taking that advice and spend a lot of time spending money and time on junk medicine.
Oh, absolutely. This is the whole of the pharmaceutical industry, I think, is based around fear, really. Everyone profits from fear. Fear is inherently very, very profitable. When you can capitalize on someone's fear and say, okay, well, here's a solution to your fear. The reality is, any medicine I give you which promises to make you live longer, you will never know. I will never know whether it's made you live longer. How do we know? Yet the whole world goes around, I've got to take this, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, because I want that kind of length of life. But you can do everything, and I know people who will take hundreds of supplements because they say, oh well, this is good for the heart and this is good for the heart, and the next thing you know, they've been involved in a road traffic accident and died.
Yeah. I imagine it's somehow easier for people's brains to think about, how do I stay here alive in 20 years or 10 years, than actually, how am I going to be present right here and now for the people around me?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we should be doing.
Yeah. Has there been a moment where you've been in a personal crisis and this advice has helped you?
Yeah, I mean, my father unfortunately became very unwell earlier this year. It was a horrendous time. Thankfully, he's fine now, but that kind of, I don't know how I would have responded to that if I were not a doctor and if I didn't have the insight I have. But it allowed me to deal with it quite well when he was unwell. Of course, you can never, you don't know. Thank God things didn't turn out differently, and I don't know how that would have affected me. But I think we're all prone to this. I mean, I think it's one thing me just saying that this is great, but I think I'm not immune to it, even though I may have this inside. I think we all are human, and I think our fear is part of very much a human emotion, and it would be impossible not to have that but I do think that what it has allowed me to do is it has allowed me to not sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
You know, home for 5 o'clock. I just spend more time with my children.
Sure.
I spend less time worrying about, oh, will I have money 20 years down the line? I'd much rather use it now and maximize the experiences now.
Mm.
On a personal note, I used to buy things, and I used to tend to be a hoarder. I tend to keep things. Oh, I'll wear this on this day, and oh no, I don't want to wear this now. I'll wear it. And then now it's changed my attitude, because the minute I get something, I just open it and I use it, and I want to use everything, and because this is my time. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow?
Sure.
So in that sense, it's good. The second thing I think I'm beginning to learn, the idea that actually, we accumulate a ton of stuff, don't we? We hoard, and the value of that thing is only really valuable to us, and if we go, then it has no value. So in some way, to preserve its value, it makes sense to give it to someone else if I'm not going to really need it, because at least then someone else has derived some pleasure from it. So I've
Sure.
started learning that as well. The idea that actually everything is, the whole thing. There's nothing I possess as such. It's only a state of mind. All the contents, and does it really give me anything? Or is it mine? Is it? I watched a movie once where, unfortunately, it's very interesting. I can't remember the name, but this lady passes away, and her children have to come and empty her house. And you see all these, things that she has preserved and she has really looked after. And the children are saying, well, that's nice. What are we going to do with this? Maybe we could give it to so-and-so. Maybe, oh, this probably has no value. We can probably get rid of that, etc. And it's a very sad thing, because you think, oh, this person held all this had so much importance attached to it. But as soon as they've gone, valueless, so to speak. So
Yeah.
why not just pass it on before? So in that sense, I think it's changed to how I try and live life. I'm trying to be more less attached to things, and I'm also trying to be more present in the present, rather than thinking constantly about the future and letting that affect my life. So it's relaxed me a lot more.
Sure. A lot of people can find comfort in things, can't they? Right.
Absolutely.
And it seems like you've been able to successfully transition from finding a lot of comfort in things by embracing this whole philosophy about being present, living for today, finding meaning in today.
I mean, I'm doing it. It's still very slow. It's very hard to let things go. It's very hard. But at least I think about it. That's a good thing. At least I think about it. At least I think, okay, well, what's going to be the use to me? What could be the use to someone else? Does it, and so I'm glad about that. And I'm hoping that it will become more and more part of my life. But it's really hard to do. If you've hoarded all your life, it's very, very hard to part with things. But actually, whenever I have parted with something, I've not really missed it. And I've actually I felt lighter. I felt lighter when something is gone.
Right. The burden is lifted a bit, right?
Yeah, because it is inherently stressful to have lots and lots of things. You worry about where they are. You worry about things breaking. You worry about the fact that they've lost their, sometimes you have something like, if I have a camera that I've held on to for ages and ages, and then one day you switch it on and it doesn't even work. And then you think, how valueless is it? There is nothing now. Everything was in my mind.
Yeah,
right.
Indeed.
So in that sense, it is one way of letting go of material possessions will hopefully allow me to let go of stress.
Exactly. It's a way of soothing yourself.
Absolutely.
Calming down that central nervous system.
Yeah. So that I think is so. Yeah, that's I've become, and it's really interesting because you look at everything, and when you look at the bigger picture, when you look at from the outside, you start realizing how pointless is all this kind of everything that goes on. All we're trying to do is all we need to do is just try and live in the moment. And if we did, there would be a lot less of, all the stuff that goes in politics and everywhere else. It is all about the future, and people are trying to fight for some kind of future. And we don't know what the future is going to hold, and the future doesn't exist. And the reality is we're all going to be okay anyway, because at the end of the day, our requirements as human beings are really low. Everything else is kind of a social construct, isn't it? That you have to have this and you have to have that.
True enough. Dr. Gupta, this has been fantastic. Great piece of advice, and I think we really got to drill down on it too a bit.
Thank you.
Where can people find you online, sir?
I have a YouTube channel, Your Cardiology, which is available on YouTube, which is sort of me giving medical advice, but again, with this kind of bigger picture in mind. Don't be scared. Don't be fearful. Whatever it is, we can deal with it. And then I have a website, drsanjayguptacardiologist.com.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for coming on Best Advice Ever.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me. All the best.
You.
Bye.
Bye.